this pandemic is really just starting to be written because things are still unfolding. But when we look back on this, the failures at these long-term care facilities has got to take up several chapters. I mean, Sue, you guys over at NJ Advanced Media have been doing some great reporting on this. It's a tragedy and a scandal. I mean, what happened there? I know we could do a whole half hour on what happened there, but bullet points in terms of how we got to this point at long-term care facilities.
I think I'd want to start off by saying that New Jersey is not the only state. Every state is facing, a very high death toll in their nursing homes and other congregate facilities. What we looked at in a story that we ran last week was, we examined, did the state move slowly in some areas to help the nursing homes compared to other states? It wasn't until, I believe, April 16th did an inspection team go out and start looking at the nursing homes days after you had the reports out of the Andover nursing home, where there was this makeshift morgue and 17 bodies. It just shocked the conscience of, what could be going on there. And the state, wasn't clued in early on. So at that point, they send in inspection teams. And when we asked, why didn't you go in sooner? You were getting calls for weeks about people not being able to see their loved ones. And the answer we heard from Commissioner Persicelli was that there wasn't the PPE for the inspection teams. And that was really enlightening, because you really, if the Department of Health doesn't have the equipment to go out and do inspections, that's pretty alarming. We received some internal documents that showed that there were, anywhere from 10 to 15% of long-term care facilities that had a week or less of PPE on hand, gloves, masks, face shields, N95 respirators. And they told us, the nursing home operators, that they felt that they were a stepchild compared to hospitals. And the focus was on hospitals early on, rightfully so, because so many people needed hospital care, but that it was really hard to get the kind of equipment to protect their people. And the belief, of course, is that nursing home workers worked in multiple nursing homes. They have to do that to make ends meet. And they were taking the virus with them in and out of different places.
Yeah.
I don't want to run on too long, but there were various areas that when they do their post-mortem, they're going to look and say, could we have done things differently?
We should note that a lot of the people who work in these nursing homes make less than $15 an hour. I mean, they're going to be paying contact tracers $25 an hour. So we were talking with Sharif El Nahal yesterday, the former health commissioner and current CEO at University Hospital, and he was saying that there may have been cases of COVID-19 in these nursing homes before we even knew that there were cases anywhere else in the state. And this is a year after the tragedy in Wanacue, where 11 kids died. I mean, when they look back on this, there's going to be, there has to be some reckoning, no?
Absolutely. In fact, the state hired its own consultant, and they're called Manatt, and a woman who used to be a high-level person at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. She's running the look. It was a 3-week look as to how the response was and what the state could have done differently and what should change. That report is due at any time. And as we mentioned earlier on the broadcast, the Senate minority and majorities have announced there's going to be hearings on the pandemic response, with long-term care being one of the principal areas of discussion.
Any indication that the state-run facilities were any worse?
Absolutely. There were the highest death tolls were in the veterans' homes. So that will be a fertile line of questioning.
Colleen, is part of the problem here that these are privately run institutions, and a lot of them have been really attractive to hedge funds and other investment groups, where ultimately it's about dollars. And packing these facilities with people means dollars for these investors. I mean, is that something that needs to be looked at? The
That
business
certainly
model?
seems to be, something that you could argue. One of the problems there, at least with the private nursing homes, is that the state only has, and the federal government have some limited authority there. Much of the inspections that are done there, look for things that might cause immediate harm or imminent jeopardy. But for things like infection control, I think what the state has now required is, that these facilities come up with new reports and present them to the state. But again, that's now reporting that this is what our infection control procedure is, not that the state is actually going in there and every day making sure they're doing these things. So they seem to have some limited, ability to impact what happens.
Another high